The Incredible Alcatraz Prison Break. Introduction. Is it possible to escape the most secure prison in the world, surrounded by icy waters and towering guards? And if you did, would anyone ever believe it? In the midst of the cold, unforgiving waters of San Francisco Bay lies a legend, the infamous Alcatraz prison, a fortress designed to hold the most dangerous criminals of its time. On the night of June 11, 1962, a daring escape took place from this impenetrable institution that would become one of the greatest mysteries in American criminal history. Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin managed to pull off an escape that left authorities stunned and led to decades of speculation. The question has haunted both investigators and the public ever since. Did they really make it out alive, or did they perish in the treacherous waters surrounding the island? With precise planning, ingenuity, and determination, the trio orchestrated a break that no one saw coming. But the real mystery remains. Did they escape to freedom, or were they swallowed by the bay's freezing waters, never to be seen again? This chilling, audacious escape continues to intrigue, fueling one of the most enduring questions in criminal history. Join us as we delve into the incredible story of the Alcatraz Prison Break, a case that has baffled experts, captivated the public, and left us all wondering, what really happened on that fateful night? The background story. Alcatraz, or The Rock, stands as one of the most notorious prisons in U.S. history. Located on a small island in San Francisco Bay, its imposing walls and frigid waters made it the ultimate high-security facility. Originally a military prison, it became a federal penitentiary in 1934 designed to house the most dangerous criminals. Notable figures like Al Capone, Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz, and George Machine Gun Kelly were incarcerated there. By the 1960s, Alcatraz had a fearsome reputation for harsh conditions, cold isolation, and strict discipline. The island's isolation made escape seem impossible. With treacherous waters, strong currents, and near-freezing temperatures, it appeared as though no one could ever break free. Guards patrolled constantly, and inmates were kept under close surveillance. Solitary confinement was the punishment for even minor misbehavior. Most prisoners believed escape was a dream, but for three men, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, this challenge would be accepted. Frank Morris, born in 1926, had a history of crime and had already escaped several other prisons by the time he arrived at Alcatraz. He was known for his intelligence and ability to outwit authorities. John and Clarence Anglin from the rural South were involved in petty crimes before being sentenced to federal prison. While not as notorious as Morris, they were resourceful and had their own history of escapes. The harsh conditions at Alcatraz, designed to break even the toughest criminals, included small isolated cells, limited recreation, and constant surveillance. Prisoners had little freedom, and any hint of trouble led to isolation in the hole, a small, windowless cell. Yet, Morris and the Anglins were not deterred. In 1961, they began planning their escape, drawing on their previous experiences. Their plan was meticulous. They used spoons, forks, and other makeshift tools to carve holes in their cell walls. They removed vent covers and widened the openings to create a passage large enough for them to crawl through. They also fashioned dummies out of old clothes and plaster to create the illusion that they were still in their cells during bed checks. The men studied the prison's routines, learning when guards were most predictable, and worked late into the night to make progress on their escape without being detected. On June 11, 1962, the plan was set into motion. After the guards completed their rounds, the three men crawled through their cell holes and made their way to the prison rooftops. From there, they navigated the grounds and reached the water's edge. They had constructed makeshift rafts from raincoats and other materials, hoping to make it across the turbulent waters of San Francisco Bay to the mainland. The men disappeared without a trace. Despite a massive manhunt, no evidence of their whereabouts was ever found. The official story is that they drowned while attempting to swim to freedom, but no bodies were recovered, fueling speculation that they may have succeeded in escaping. Some believe they made it to South America, while others think they adopted new identities in the U.S. The escape remains one of America's most enduring mysteries. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged regarding the fate of Morris and the Anglins. Did they die in the cold waters? Or did they manage to escape and live out their lives in secrecy? Their story is a testament to human ingenuity and the desire for freedom, continuing to captivate people to this day. Today, Alcatraz is a popular tourist attraction, but the escape from the rock remains an unsolved enigma. The story of Morris and the Anglins reminds us of the lengths people will go to for freedom, and the mystery of their escape continues to be a symbol of the impossible becoming reality. The incident, the night of June 11, 1962, marked the beginning of one of the most extraordinary prison escapes in history. Frank Morris, along with brothers John and Clarence Anglin, executed a daring and elaborate plan that not only tested human ingenuity but also sparked one of the longest and most mysterious investigations in U.S. history. Alcatraz, known for its brutal conditions and seemingly impenetrable security, was considered an escape-proof prison. Its isolation and advanced security systems seemed to make escape unthinkable. But that night, the impossible unfolded. The preparations. Months earlier, Morris and the Anglins began planning their escape. All three were experienced criminals with escape attempts under their belts, and Alcatraz was no match for their resourcefulness. Using their cells as a base, they hollowed out sections of the walls using rudimentary tools like spoons and forks. Over time, they created passages large enough for them to crawl through. These led to the dark utility corridors behind the cells, spaces rarely accessed by guards. The trio worked at night, chiseling away at the walls, ensuring their actions went unnoticed. During the day, they used meticulous patience to avoid detection. Frank Morris, the most experienced, led the effort, while the Anglin brothers played crucial supporting roles. As they created their escape route, they gathered materials for the next phase, crafting makeshift rafts and dummies to deceive the guards during bed checks. They used old clothes, newspapers, and plaster to create life-sized figures that looked like sleeping prisoners. The dummies were placed in their beds to give the illusion of the men still being in their cells during nightly checks. The night of the escape, on June 11, 1962, after months of preparation, the escape plan was set in motion. The men crawled through the holes they created, making their way to the roof and then down to the prison's perimeter. They launched their makeshift rafts, constructed from raincoats and other materials, into the icy waters of San Francisco Bay. The guards, doing their routine checks, were fooled by the dummies. The men's absence went undetected for hours, as the dummies gave the appearance of sleeping prisoners. The escapees then climbed down from the roof, carefully navigating the prison grounds and reaching the water's edge. Their rafts were rudimentary, but the cold and dangerous waters of the bay presented their biggest challenge. The men paddled across the bay, battling the fierce current and freezing temperatures. The outcome was uncertain, but they pressed on, hoping to reach the mainland. The discovery. By the morning of June 12th, the escape was discovered. Guards found the dummies still in the cells but realized the three men were missing. A full alarm was raised, and an intensive manhunt began. Investigators quickly determined that the men had escaped through the holes in their cells, used the utility corridors to reach the roof, and then descended to the perimeter. The FBI was called in, and a massive search effort ensued. The waters of San Francisco Bay were combed, and nearby areas were thoroughly scoured. However, no trace of the escapees, their rafts, or clothing was found. Despite the extensive search, no bodies were recovered. The fate of Morris and the Anglin brothers remains unknown. Did they drown in the cold waters of the bay, or did they manage to escape the island entirely? The mystery of their escape continues to intrigue and captivate, with no definitive answers emerging after decades of investigation. The investigation into the Alcatraz escape. The discovery of Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin's escape from Alcatraz on June 12, 1962, sparked one of the most exhaustive investigations in U.S. law enforcement history. Alcatraz, regarded as one of the most secure prisons, had seemed impenetrable. The escape sent shockwaves through the system, and authorities scrambled to understand how the men had broken free and where they might have gone. Despite a massive search effort, the mystery persists. Initial discovery. The escape unfolds. At 7 a.m. on June 12th, the guards at Alcatraz began their morning rounds, expecting to find the prisoners still in their cells. Instead, they discovered lifelike dummies made from paper, cloth, and plaster in the beds of Morris and the Anglin brothers. The dummies were designed to resemble the men, fooling the guards into thinking they were asleep. The prisoners had covered their heads with clothing, creating the illusion of still being in their cells. The escape was immediately detected, and Warden O'Reilly and prison staff launched a search. Behind the prisoners' cells, holes were found in the walls, revealing the beginning of the escape route. The men had meticulously covered the holes to avoid detection. Authorities quickly realized the magnitude of the escape. Morris and the Anglins had bypassed multiple security layers, including reinforced concrete walls, steel bars, and heavily guarded fences. The search effort. The prison went into lockdown, and the FBI was called. The search involved the FBI, U.S. Marshals, the Coast Guard, and local law enforcement. The possibility that the men had successfully navigated San Francisco Bay, which separated Alcatraz from the mainland, was central to the investigation. Search of San Francisco Bay. The search began with an extensive combing of the bay. Coast Guard ships, helicopters, and divers scoured the waters for any sign of the escapees or their makeshift rafts. Despite the thorough search, no bodies, rafts, or materials associated with the escape were found, deepening the mystery. If the men had drowned, why were no bodies recovered? The absence of evidence suggested they might have reached shore and escaped undetected. FBI's role and initial investigation. With no leads from the Bay search, the FBI focused on whether the men had reached the mainland. Investigators examined the escape route in detail, from the prison cells to the water's edge. The holes in the walls had been dug with makeshift tools over several months, and the prisoners had covered them at night to avoid detection. The dummies, crafted to deceive the guards, demonstrated the men's meticulous planning. The FBI also explored the possibility of outside assistance, but no evidence suggested that anyone outside the prison helped the escapees. Investigators believed the men had studied the bay's tides and currents in detail, possibly on their own. The search expands. The FBI expanded the search across multiple states, especially along the West Coast. Numerous tips and sightings were reported, many suggesting the men had reached California or gone into hiding. Witnesses claimed to have seen them in San Francisco or rural areas in Northern California. Despite these reports, no concrete evidence was found to support the claims. Some believed the men were living under assumed identities or hiding in isolated areas, but the lack of reliable evidence kept the investigation at a standstill. Interviews with the men's acquaintances yielded no substantial information, and some family members even denied knowledge of the escape, leading investigators to suspect the men had planned it without outside help. The mystery remains. The mystery of the Alcatraz escape continues to captivate the public. Despite an exhaustive investigation, the fate of Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin remains unknown. Theories and speculations persist, with some believing they either died in the bay or vanished into the urban landscape of California. The search for evidence on the mainland. As no bodies were recovered from the bay, investigators considered the possibility that the escapees had made it to the mainland. The FBI focused its efforts on areas surrounding the bay, questioning residents, interviewing known criminals, and following up on sightings of the men in cities like San Francisco. One report described 3 individuals resembling the escapees near a train station in San Jose, but the lead went nowhere. Despite numerous similar tips, none could be confirmed, and the FBI returned to the possibility that the escapees had perished in the bay. Forensic investigation and clues from the escape route. The FBI examined the escape route itself, noting how long it must have taken to dig through the concrete and steel bars without detection. The escapees had covered their tracks by working at night and using sheets and clothing to hide their progress. Their rafts, made from raincoats sewn together, suggested months of preparation. These rafts were key pieces of evidence. The authorities questioned whether the rafts had helped the men survive or if they had failed to make it across the bay. Despite a thorough search of the bay and shoreline, no trace of the rafts was found. This raised questions. Had the escapees taken another route, or were they more resourceful than initially believed? The pursuit of the Anglin brothers. John and Clarence Anglin, known for their criminal activity, were particularly of interest to the FBI. The authorities speculated that they might continue a life of crime after escaping, and their whereabouts were closely monitored. However, despite numerous reports of sightings, none proved to be true. Like many leads during the investigation, these tips were not conclusive. The FBI focused on the possibility that the escapees had drowned in the bay, as no evidence suggested otherwise. Reopening the case. In the late 1970s, the FBI officially closed the case due to a lack of evidence. However, the case remained a source of fascination, and in the 1990s, new reports suggested that the investigation might have missed key evidence. Renewed interest and modern forensic techniques prompted a reconsideration of the case. Despite these efforts, the escape remains unsolved, and the fate of the three men remains a mystery. The investigation into the Alcatraz escape is a testament to the complexity of the case. Though it ended with more questions than answers, it has left a lasting impact on law enforcement and popular culture, ensuring that the mystery will endure for generations. Theories and speculations. The disappearance of the three escapees from Alcatraz prison remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in criminal history. The theories surrounding their fate have become as infamous as the escape itself, with a variety of explanations put forward by law enforcement officials, researchers, and conspiracy theorists over the years. From the belief that the escapees perished in the bay to the theory that they successfully evaded capture for years, the investigation gave rise to numerous speculative ideas. These theories not only fueled public interest in the case, but also shaped how it was viewed in popular culture and criminal lore. 1. The escapees drowned in the bay. The most widely accepted theory at the time was that the three men, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, had perished while attempting to escape across the turbulent waters of San Francisco Bay. This theory is grounded in the known dangers of the bay, which include strong tides, cold water temperatures, and unpredictable currents. Even experienced swimmers would have struggled to survive the conditions, and it seemed plausible that the escapees, who had not swum in such a treacherous environment before, had drowned. Upon the discovery of the missing inmates, the FBI launched an extensive search for their bodies. The Coast Guard was called in, and search teams scoured the waters surrounding Alcatraz Island, including the shoreline and deeper waters. Despite their efforts, no bodies, rafts, or clothing belonging to the escapees were found in the water. Some investigators believed that the lack of evidence in the bay indicated that the men had failed to survive their escape. Over time, however, the theory began to lose credibility for many, as no conclusive evidence of their deaths had been found. The lack of rafts or any debris associated with the escape led some to question the idea that the escapees had drowned, fueling new theories. 2. The escapees survived and made it to the mainland. Another widely discussed theory is that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers survived the dangerous swim across the bay and made it to the mainland. Proponents of this theory point to the escapees' meticulous planning and resourcefulness, suggesting that they used their skills and knowledge of the bay's geography to avoid detection and navigate the hazardous waters. One of the factors that support this theory is the escapees' understanding of tides, currents, and geographical landmarks. It was believed that the men, having spent years on Alcatraz Island, might have studied the flow of water around the island, which could have helped them determine the optimal time to make their escape. The currents in San Francisco Bay can be treacherous, but if the men timed their departure with the tides and winds, it was possible that they could have made it to the mainland undetected. In addition to the rafts made from raincoats, it's possible that the escapees used other items from their cells to aid their escape, such as the makeshift ropes or floating devices. The escape was not an impromptu decision. The men had carefully planned every aspect, including their departure times, the layout of the island, and even the materials they used. The absence of bodies and evidence in the bay could indicate that they managed to survive and reach the mainland. A local man even came forward years after the escape, claiming that he had seen individuals resembling the escapees in a rural area near San Jose. Despite the unconfirmed sightings, the theory that the escapees made it to the mainland became more plausible in the eyes of some, although no conclusive evidence has ever been found. 3. The escapees were helped by an outside party. Another popular theory is that the escapees were assisted by someone on the outside, possibly a friend, relative, or even an accomplice. This theory suggests that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers had someone waiting for them on the mainland, either to pick them up from the shore or to help them find a safe hiding spot once they arrived. While the FBI did investigate this possibility, no evidence was uncovered to support the claim. Authorities questioned local criminal figures, conducted interviews, and investigated known associates of the escapees, but they could not find any clear links to outside accomplices. Despite the lack of evidence, the theory that someone helped them escape persisted in popular speculation. There was speculation that a local criminal network might have been involved, as some believed that the escapees could have contacted outside help through hidden messages or coded communications. Furthermore, some of the escapees' family members were believed to be in contact with individuals who had the resources to assist in such a high-stakes operation. Despite no hard proof, this theory remains an intriguing possibility for many researchers. For the escapees went into hiding. A variation of the theory that the escapees survived the bay suggests that they did not immediately flee to another country or far-off destination, but instead went into hiding in the United States. According to this theory, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers laid low in rural parts of Northern California or even urban areas, hoping to avoid detection by the authorities. Supporters of this theory argue that the escapees' extensive knowledge of criminal activities and their ability to blend into society would have given them an advantage. The Anglins, in particular, had a history of criminal behavior and had served time in various institutions before their Alcatraz sentence, making them familiar with life on the run. They were believed to be skilled in the art of evading capture, which might have helped them survive the search. According to some reports, there were multiple sightings of individuals who resembled the escapees over the years. Although none of these claims were confirmed, the idea that the men lived for years in hiding became more prominent, particularly as the decades passed without any definitive answers about their fates. Conclusion: the Alcatraz escape is one of the most captivating unsolved mysteries in American history. On June 11, 1962, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin executed a daring and brilliantly planned prison break. Using everyday materials, they created lifelike dummies to fool guards, crawled through a vent, scaled walls, and vanished into the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Despite an extensive manhunt by the FBI, no trace of the escapees was ever found. Theories about their fate abound. Did they perish in the bay or manage to escape and live in secrecy? Were they aided by accomplices, or did they act alone? These questions keep the case alive in the public consciousness. Although the FBI closed the investigation, declaring the men presumed dead, interest in the case has only grown. Books, documentaries, and films continue to fuel speculation. Modern technology, such as DNA analysis, has provided no conclusive answers. The theory that the escapees survived and evaded authorities is particularly compelling. Unverified reports of sightings and unusual circumstances surrounding their disappearance continue to spark debates. Could they have lived their lives in hiding, or were they lost to the waters? Some believe there were accomplices or hidden resources involved in the escape, raising questions about possible corruption within the prison system. These mysteries remain unsolved but challenge our understanding of the case. The Alcatraz escape is a symbol of human ingenuity against insurmountable odds. Its legacy endures in popular culture, sparking ongoing curiosity and speculation. The ambiguity of the case is what makes it fascinating. The questions remain, and perhaps that is what keeps us captivated. The mystery of whether the escapees truly escaped or still hide in plain sight may never be answered, but the story continues to intrigue and inspire.